Welcome everyone to Accelerate Your Consulting. I am Tracy Rader here with Chris Ediger, and we are so glad that you've taken time today to join us. If you are in the consulting or coaching world, then this live stream is for you. And so thanks for coming. Wow, Chris, today's a big day, right? It's voting day.
There's something going on today? I wasn't aware of that.
In America. Maybe the ones around.
Yeah, I was watching football on Saturday, and I don't know the exact count. I'll tell you what it felt like. The game ended, and I think there must have been like 11 political commercials back to back, and it was almost humorous. It was like ping pong. It was like, this is why you should vote for this guy, and then immediately following why you shouldn't vote for him. So, and the fact we live in Georgia, which is a little bit more contested than normal. And so the amount of commercials we've been seeing here locally and the amount of mail, there's got to be a better use for paper than so. I mean, we get amazing amounts of volume. So I'm going to geek out and watch just because I'm interested in what's going on in our country. Obviously, I think we'll survive whatever direction it is, but I'm ready for it to be over. I'm ready for a new season and a fresh start. I'm probably more excited about that than the actual election results. So
I agree. I am too. So if you're around the world from somewhere else besides America, you are, I'd say, missing out, but maybe not really.
No.
It's a whole different ballgame. It would be probably a lot of entertainment for you if you wanted to come to America and see what it's really like. But anyway,
we ought to do that sometime. I would love to just because we have a lot of relationships with consultants all over the world. I would love to have a conversation about what other people think of our political system and process, because I know what it feels like on the inside. I'm not sure what it feels like on the outside. That would be a fascinating conversation.
Well, yes. Well, actually, anytime you want to watch the live stream with Steve Cockram, either the Personality Yoda, every once in a while he'll talk politics on there, or the Founders live stream. That's a good one. The banter that goes on between Jeremy and Steve. It's really funny, especially since Steve is from the UK, but he lived in America and got to experience some of it. And now he's back in the UK. So it's fascinating.
That's fun. Well, here's what I was saying last week to a lot of our consultants. I'm like, hey, this is better than anything else you're going to see on TV today. So thank you for being here for the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to make it worth your while. This will absolutely help you to be better and to be able to serve your consultants and clients and be able to grow your business, hopefully more effectively. So we're really glad that you've tuned in.
That's very true. And if it is your first time and you don't know us, I am Tracy Rader. I'm the Director of Implementation here at Giant, and is our Director of Partners. And so he is the one really that works probably the closest with our consultants and some of our coaches. We call them guides. And so he's the man of the 30 minutes, I'd say, not the man of the hour. So
there we go. I like that.
The man of the 30 minutes. Well, okay. So let's dive right in, because I know this is going to be a very helpful topic today, what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as always, you might be tuning in, watching this on Giant, on the platform, or on one of our social media platforms on LinkedIn or Facebook. On any of those, please let us know you're here. Drop in a comment. Feel free to ask questions at any time. We're happy to do that. We will pause here in a minute and answer any questions that have come through before we conclude, but we will have that. And then if you want to continue to engage with us, Tracy and I are both on LinkedIn. You can see our tags there of where to find us. I'm also on Instagram. Would love to interact with you there if you so choose, but we're just so glad that you're with us. Here's what we're going to be talking about today: data-driven consulting. And I think at first glance, people might say, well, isn't that what really consulting is really about? You would think so. Unfortunately, we've had our fair experience and fair share, both individually ourselves, as well as the consultants that we work with, of people who really don't do that. And so it's really a difference between guessing and assessing, right? Are you going to guess what the needs are of your clients and be a little bit more haphazard in what you're doing? Or is there a system in place to be able to assess what the real needs are and actually have data that's driving those conversations? That's so critical to what you're doing. And I would say it's critical to building a healthy business. We were on a call, Tracy and I, today with our own core team this morning, and we were looking at the data, right? We were looking at numbers, and we make decisions based on the numbers. And sometimes the numbers aren't lining up with the things we would love to work on, right? We would rather get, Bronson said, I really want to go over here and focus on this thing because it's a lot more fun. But the data, where the data is, this is where we need to be focusing our attention. And I think that's really critical for us. So this is what we do. Just as a reminder, you may have been with us a couple of weeks ago. Bronson Taylor, our CEO, was on the stream that day, and he kind of gave an overview of this process. I'm not going to go into great details because that episode is available for on-demand viewing with a free account on Giant. We'll tell you how to get that at the end of this call. You can go through. I would encourage you to watch that and see a little bit more details. But really, what it comes down to is when we're working with leaders and teams, we have a people system, a people operating system called the Invincible Operating System. And it really is these three components. It starts and ends with the assessment. And that's why I bring that up, because we work from reality of the people that we're working with. And then we implement some kind of tool that actually helps them to be able to improve on those scores. And we do it in a very intentional way through a process. So again, these are the three areas. The assessment is how we discover the current performance of the teams and the organizations that we work with. That also provides a clear focus for what we're going to be doing with them. It dictates the plan. The toolkit, if you've been on any of these, we show you some of the tools from time to time. We're going to be doing this again next week. I'll tell you at the end. We'll show you another one of our tools. But we have a collection of over 60 simple visual tools that can have profound impact and create a common core language within the teams that you're working with to actually help you improve those scores. And we do that with a very intentional rhythm and process. Now, we didn't always do that. This is kind of the key result of really decades of working within the leadership space with organizations and consultants and teams all over the world. And if I had to put a word or a phrase on how we did consulting for so long, it was really this. In fact, this is a term you would have heard quite a bit in the earlier days of Giant. You would have heard us talk about one of the things we pride ourselves on is that we have all of these tremendous assets and tools and content that we can come alongside your team and create a custom bespoke solution, which just means we're going to create something for you that's unique for you, and it's meant to be able to address your needs. Now, the intent was very healthy. The intent was, look, we're not walking in thinking that we already know what you need to be able to improve because somehow we know all this stuff, even though we've never met you or we don't know your industry or your team members. Like, we're not going to be one of those companies that's just going to come and shove what we think you should be doing down your throats and try to sell you on something that has nothing to do with your company. That's not who we are. We actually want the opposite. We're very relational driven. We want to walk alongside you. We want to meet you where you are. That's all well and good, and it's very good. Now, the problem with that is that we quickly got to a point where our consultants who were serving teams all over the world weren't doing something that was very sustainable for them, and it certainly wasn't repeatable for others. So if we brought on a new consultant, it was very difficult. We couldn't just like match them up with another consultant who was doing very successful things because what they were doing was so custom and so different. And every time they went into a different company, they did something different. And that's just not sustainable. It's a lot of work for you as a consultant to have to come in and kind of do something, create something brand new every single time you come in and work with someone new. That's not good. And it's not good for us as a company that's trying to grow and reach more and more people and be able to serve more and more teams through our content and tools, because the process looked different for every single consultant in every part of the world. Now, we changed that. And here's the reason that we changed it, because here's what we were starting to experience. When you have a consultant that's struggling in regards to this area, these are the things that we found. First of all, they weren't really benchmarking reality with hard data. They were coming in and, at worst, they were trying to just maybe have a sense of what the team might need based on their experience, based on their training. They came in and say, oh, this is what it sounds like to me. Here's what I think you probably best need. Again, nothing wrong with that, but it was, it was a lot of burden on the consultant, or there was a lot of burden on the leaders. And we were kind of listening and leaning into the leaders who were telling us what they thought the issues were or what they thought the solutions were. And I don't know if you've worked in the leadership space for very long or at all, but one of the things you'll find very quickly is that leaders don't always have a correct perception of what the team is doing. In fact, when we started doing some of these assessments, we started actually assessing the leader separately from the rest of the team because we wanted to have those two data points to be able to compare. And historically, what would happen on a regular basis is that the team leaders would score things about 10 percentage points higher than the rest of the team. So if you think of like a grading system, like here in the US, the team would be saying we're at a C and the leader thought things were at a B. They always thought things were one grade higher than what they really were. That's not reality. That's not helpful. So we were either having to trust our own intuitive skills or we were having to listen to someone who was doing the same. And that's just not very healthy. We didn't know where to focus, right? It was kind of a scattershot, like, okay, let's start here. And so what would happen is we would kind of crank out these like programmatic approaches, like, well, here's kind of the areas that we think every team might be needing help with. So let's kind of fit your needs that you think you have into this kind of rhythm that we're going to do anyway. And we came in and kind of did more programs. And again, nothing wrong with that. Those were effective programs, but they weren't necessarily focusing on the right things. In other words, we would tend to start with communication. And I know everybody could be better at communication, but what if you came in and the team you're working in really needed help with execution? And your plan, your program that you're normally doing with the company, you wouldn't be talking about that for 10 more months. Like, that's not helpful, right? You're not really focusing on the real things. We've talked about this before on this live stream, in that it's really hard to prove progress, improve return on investment on something like leadership development. Outside of you looking at the leader going, well, they're not as big a jerk as they used to be. How do you know? How do you know that the work and the time and the energy and the money that we're investing in you as consultant, how do we as the client know that it's actually making a difference? And then what we found is sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And sometimes it was effective and sometimes it wasn't. And largely it felt almost accidental, that sometimes we would accidentally get it right. We would accidentally address things that made things better. And it just made things hard. It's hard for us as a business to grow that way. It's hard for our consultants to be able to be successful and grow that way. So when we made the switch to doing an assessment, we started looking at this. We started looking at these 5 key areas, because what we knew was these were the areas, like these were the same pain points we were experiencing all over the world, from small mom and pop, small time businesses, all the way to large full scale organizations and corporations. All of them were hurting in these areas. But rather than us coming in and saying, well, let's start with communication and then we'll do relationships and then we'll do alignment and so on, we actually started to assess and listen to the real data of what was going on. So we put an assessment together that actually evaluates the team health and effectiveness in each of these 5 areas. It's built into the operating system. It's built into our technology of our platform, the Invincible product specifically. And so what that does is it allows teams to come in and anonymously and accurately give their own feedback of what it feels like to be a part of this team in these areas. And it's protected data, so that we can't go and say, John said that Bob's being a bad boss. Like we can't do that, but we could say John's team thinks that there are some areas where the team is misaligned in these areas. That's very, very helpful. So we started doing this, and here's what we found when it came to our consultants. All of a sudden, they were able to benchmark. We knew exactly where we were starting from, because the team was telling us where the health was and where the needs were. They were telling us what areas we don't need to focus as much time and attention today on, because they're already excelling in, versus the ones that are really the hurting in the areas of growth. It helped our consultants to be able to identify very easily and accurately the areas that they needed to pay attention. So rather than them having to predict it or trust someone within the organization to have a true perception of what was going on, we just let the data spell it out. And the data spoke to say, here's where we have the greatest opportunities to grow as a team. And then what we do is we come back every 3 months and we reassess. So we have the same team answer the same questions using the same assessment. And then we start to compare and contrast. And we can tell that the work that we're putting in, the work they're putting in, the money and the time investment they're making is actually moving the needle. It's actually improving scores. Or it actually shows there may be a new area that's crept up that we need to focus on, and we can adjust. And because of that, we're still effective, but we're effective and it's not a surprise. It's not a stroke of luck. We're actually effective because at the end of the day, we've used the hard data to be able to focus our time and attention and tools and processes to being able to help them specifically to do that. That's how you grow as an organization. That's how you perform at a higher capacity and build a impactful business that's actually successful. So I would love to answer any questions. If there's anything that you have, feel free to drop it into a comment or the chat on the screen. And I'm happy to answer it before we hop off today. Tracy, anything that's come in so far?
Yeah, we have a good question here. Daniel's asking, can I, as an independent consultant, just purchase your assessment without using the whole platform?
Yeah, great question, Daniel. The answer is no, and I'll tell you the easy reason why is because the assessment is foundational, but it's just a piece of the puzzle. Like for me, it does no good to be able to see and spot those areas if I don't have the apparatus to actually come in and help doing it. And our tools are the lifeblood of what we do, right? These kind of tools. I'll give you an example. I was with one of our consultants here in Atlanta that is serving a new client. It's a company that we spent about 4 hours together. And here's what's amazing. We taught one of our tools. It's called Know Yourself to Lead Yourself. Our consultant taught it at the very beginning. And these are people that don't know us. Like this was their first, she's starting a year-long engagement with a new client. It's the first chance they've met her. And within the first 15 minutes, she's teaching one of our tools. And she spent maybe 3 minutes on it, right? I mean, Tracy, you're familiar with that tool. And then here's what we do. We just moved on and we taught and we did some other things. I came back 2 hours later, like literally we hadn't looked at it in 2 hours. We had only spent about 3 minutes showing it to a group of people who didn't have any context or didn't know who we were at that point. And what I did is I showed a blank tool and I actually asked them, okay, look, we haven't looked at this in 2 hours. Can you remember like what was here? What was here? What was here? What did that mean? And it was amazing. The people in the room were like, yeah, it was tendencies, and those create patterns of behavior that lead to actions that have consequences, good and bad, and they affect our reality. And we have to know ourselves to lead ourselves. Like they were teaching it back to me because that's the power of the tool. So that's why I'd say, Dana, we don't decouple one of these from the other because it's an entire system. The assessment is a part. So if you were to come in as a team, for instance, in Invincible, or if you were a consultant that is leveraging our platform, what you would want to do is you would want to have everybody take the assessment. And then we have a process for you to utilize our tools to go through in a way that is proven out because we've done this with people all over the world for decades. So unfortunately, you can have access to the assessment, but it's included as a part of the Invincible product that you would use with teams. Good question, though.
Yeah, that's really good. This is kind of a follow-up to that. Maddie's asking, I've been a coach for years, but haven't used an assessment. How hard is it to learn it and to facilitate it?
Yeah, great. And I can't speak for other people's assessments. For instance, I'm Myers-Briggs certified. I love Myers-Briggs. I think it's incredibly powerful. It's also very confusing, or it can be, right? It's like you bump into people and they're like, yeah, I don't know it. Or I know my letters, but I don't know what it means. Or, it's hard to be sticky is what we kind of the informal term that we call it. Mm-hmm. And so when we created our assessment, we were like, okay, it's got to be sticky. It's got to be something that's very straightforward. So the assessment itself, let me see if I can open up another window and I'll actually just show it to you so you can see some of the ease at which we're doing this. Let me stop sharing and I'll start over here. So here's our assessment. If you're to log in, again, assessment toolkit process. So the one thing that we do is we come in and say, okay, we want to evaluate you in these 5 areas. And the assessment, it's very straightforward. It's like, our team puts the needs of others before their own. Do I agree with that? Do I not agree with that? Somewhere in the middle. Our team knows where to find the expertise and resources required in order to help them grow. Our team utilizes a live online collaboration tool for recording elements of what we're working on. Our team has a system for prioritizing what should be done next. Our team consistently speaks highly of each other. Our team uses an appropriate level of and helpful tone and tact. Our team knows who is helping to develop them on very practical things. Mm-hmm. And then when they get done, it actually puts the results on a spider graph. So here, let me log into something that's got some sample data so you can actually see the throughput of what that looks like.
Yeah, and as you're bringing that up, what I love is that, depending on your organization, your employees might be on 4 or 5 teams. And so right there at the top, when you start to take it, one of the first questions that ask you is, what team are you taking this for? So you might have your people, they may be taking it 3 or 4 times because they're assessing each individual team that they're on.
That's right. And I actually had someone ask this question last week. They said, is there any way for, what if the team wants to evaluate the organization? I'm like, okay, well, you can probably figure out how to do that. That's not what it's designed for, because what we realize is the health of an organization is in direct correlation to the health of the teams. The performance of the organization is just simply the combined effort or performance of the teams. You need to know at the team level, because that's where change happens. So you can see here, this is an entire organization, right? We would see their highest is communication. Their lowest, it looks like, is alignment. You can come in here and download a CSV file that has every question with all of the combined scores. But here's where it gets really, really powerful. I can come into the team, just like Tracy said, and let's take the sales team. In the sales team, the highest scoring area, well, that one's not pulling up. Let me try a different one. Let's try the marketing team. The marketing team, it's not showing for some reason. Maybe last quarter.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably a bug in here somewhere on ours, because this is the test account. And there's lots of people in here testing with it, but you can get the idea. You can see the dashboard of each of the teams. And when you open up a team for your client, you can actually see the breakdown of the voices or the areas. So for a team like marketing, communication may be their strength. They may be getting an 85%, doing really, really well. Whereas if I open up the sales team, maybe communication is a struggle area. Maybe they're at a 40% or 50%. Well, to be able to come in and say, why is that? What is the marketing team doing that the sales team can learn from, right? You get really collaborative to be able to do that. And then on our end, you've got all of these tools that we teach. So you can come in and say communication code. I was just talking to one of my clients about this. Effective communication. You can see the tool. You can watch a video from Steve teaching it. You can see the breakdown. Those are all available to you. And then our process that we've talked about before is there's weekly learning for every individual in the company that they do it. You're coaching the leaders on a monthly basis. You're utilizing team exercises that, guess what, relate to the areas. So if capacity is hurting, you need to be using this exercise, which is an intentional transfer plan, to actually go through and teach them this exercise and work through that tool as an organization. You can see the assessment results here. And then once a year, we do a people summit with them to actually help them to be able to grow and have a plan, intentional plan for their people. So you can see it's just all married together. To your question, it's really easy to utilize because you're just literally looking and it shows you. So usually when I'm going through a team, I'm going, here's your scores. Here's the top 5 questions and here's the bottom 5. Here's what we can do intentionally to own the result of the bottom 5 and actually start to work on it over the next 2 to 3 months. And then when we come back in 3 months, we're hoping to be able to reevaluate and see those bottom scores go up. And then maybe a different question comes out of the woodwork, and that's where we start to focus our attention on that. So it's really intuitive in how you do that.
Wow, so powerful. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it. I've seen assessments. Yeah. I've seen some tools, but I've not seen it married in this way where it gives you a solution to your issue or your lowest scoring.
Yeah, and again, and here's why we created it this way is if you're not using an assessment of some sort, you don't have to use ours, right? Like just use yours, like create one. if you don't have some kind of ongoing content that's visual based, that's sticky, that's rememberable, that you could teach for 3 minutes and then 2 hours later come back and people could actually teach it back to you. If you don't have powerful content like that, and you don't have an ongoing regular routine and a process that actually helps them, that's the kind of stuff you need to do to have a successful consulting practice. Now, the benefit of being, as us, is that we've already done the hard work. So, you don't have to create all of that. You can actually come and use ours, and we would encourage you to be able to do that. In fact, it's probably a good time just to show you all before we hop off, kind of where you can find more information about what we're doing. If you go to that URL, that's on the screen, giantworldwide.com/accelerate. You can learn all about our coaching program. You can learn about these tools. You can see what you're going to get certified and equipped on, how that works. And then to get more, answers, just click the schedule info call button. That'll put you in touch with someone from our team. Again, it's not a high sales call. It really is just to answer questions, figure out who you are and where you're at, and if Giant's a good fit. And we're happy to answer questions along those lines. But I would really encourage you to check that out, because we've spent a lot of time and energy into creating what you see on the screen in a way that's very fluid. And we did it for good reason, because we had too many people trying to create it on their own. And we're just like, why are we doing that? Like, why don't we help create something based on what we know works? And then it becomes a repeatable, sustainable process, both for our consultants and for the benefit of their clients at the end of the day. So any other questions, Tracy?
No other questions have come through. But, I was thinking, those of you listening and watching, you're a consultant. That's your thing. That's what you do. That's what you're good at. You're probably not good at writing your own assessment, right? That's a whole different skill set. And so, like Chris says, we've done the hard work for you. So just enjoy that and take it as a gift, really. So.
Or it might be the opposite. You may be really good at creating content, but you can kind of struggle on how do I make sure that I'm meeting the needs of my client, or proving success, or helping, the chances that you're really good at all of those, if you are, great, like, more power to you. I think that's awesome. Chances are you're probably not. There's probably one or more of those that you could use some help with. And we certainly have tried to create a system that is affordable, and we can come alongside you and help you to be successful in what you're doing.
That's great. Well, once again, Chris, just really good practical application type of information, and I love it. So tell us what's going on next week.
Yeah, so we do this every Tuesday at 2 p.m. This is the first time that you've done this. We broadcast to our social media platforms, but I would encourage you to come on to Giant, because, again, there's a lot of great free resources that you can see what we do up close and personal, and you can create a free account at giant.tv/free account. Do that and join us on the platform next week, because then you can tune into all of the other great live streams and other content that we're doing on the platform. Next Tuesday, November 10th, we're going to be talking about one of our tools called the Core, that really helps people at the heart of where they're at. We often use this analogy of, and this is going to be me, if I'm being honest, Tracy, or we get out of COVID, I get back on a regular basis into the gym, maybe hire a trainer. The trainer is not going to, maybe they're going to ask me, like, what are you wanting to grow in, obviously, but they're also going to go, hey, we need to develop your core. We need to help you get strong at this intersection of all these important things going on in your body. Like, that's really the way it is with all of us. So we're going to talk about the 3 different areas that we as Giant try to strive to be able to meet needs and try to kind of hit that intersection, because that's how we can really help strengthen the people and the teams that we work with. And so you'll get a chance to be able to see one of our tools up close and personal. So I'd encourage you to come back next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time to be able to tune in for that.
That's great. Well, thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. And just a reminder to everyone to go and vote today.
That's right.
All right.
Appreciate you all tuning in. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.